So as Nick just mentioned, marks the end of our Walking with the Apostles series. Through the last 11 weeks, we've been looking at the lives of the apostles and how basically they were ordinary men, just like you and me, but God used them in extraordinary ways. And in this past couple of weeks, we've been kind of focusing on the Apostle Paul. We started looking at his background and just that amazing transformation experience on the road to Damascus. And we studied last week about what drove him as a man, where he got his confidence and how he was able to do the things that he did as a Christian. And in looking at his life, we might have the tendency to think of him as kind of a super saint or super Christian, somebody with special talents, special abilities, superpowers, after all, he did write most of the New Testament, I know for myself, when I first started studying his life, I was kind of thinking this, I read how he talks about imitate me as I imitate Christ, but I had to ask myself, is that really possible? This guy is way above where I'm at. But the more I read about him, the more I realized that he's a man just like us, just like you and me. He was human. He had doubts, he had struggles, he had questions, just like we do at times. And the more I read this, the more it encouraged me as a man. I saw that if he could press on in his faith, knowing the stuff he's been through, so can I, so can every one of us. And through his life, he experienced many trials, struggles, and hardships. In 2 Corinthians chapter 11, verses 20 through 27, he gives a kind of a little glimpse of some of the things he went through during his ministry. And keep in mind, this isn't everything he went through. It's not all inclusive, but there's quite a bit here. So I'm going to read that. And I'm reading out of the New Living Translation here. It says, "Are they servants of Christ? I know I sound like a madman, but I have served him even more. I have worked harder, been put in prison more often, been whipped times without number, and faced death again and again. 5 different times the Jewish leaders gave me 39 lashes. 3 times I was beaten with rods. Once I was stoned. 3 times I was shipwrecked. Once I spent a whole night and a day adrift at sea. I have traveled many long journeys. I have faced danger from rivers and from robbers. I have faced danger from my own people, the Jews, as well as from the Gentiles. I have faced dangers in the cities, in the deserts, and on the seas. And I have faced danger from men who claim to be believers, but are not. I have worked long and hard, enduring many sleepless nights. I have been hungry and thirsty, often gone without food. I have shivered in the cold, without enough clothing to keep me warm." Sounds pretty rough life, But as I mentioned last week, through his ministry, he had confidence that the Lord was in control, that God was using him through all these circumstances and trials that he went through. And ultimately, he knew God would take him home. But he, like I mentioned, he did have doubts and questions, just like we do. We get an idea of some of these thoughts that he had and questions he had in the following verses. In 2 Corinthians 1:8, he talks about a time he was going through this intense trials. It was a time when he felt like it was almost more than he could endure. And as we read this, you can almost feel the pain in his words. He says, "We were burdened beyond measure, above strength, so that we despaired even of life." You can almost feel the pain in what he's saying there. In another passage in 2 Timothy 4, 9 through 18, he talks about a time when he felt alone, like everyone was deserting him. And he questioned his own actions at times. He didn't understand why he did the things that he did. In Romans chapter 7, verses 15 through 25, he relates this struggle to us where he says the following. He says, "I don't really understand myself, for I want to do what is right, but I don't do it. Instead, I do what I hate. But if I know what I do is wrong, this shows I agree with the law. This shows I agree that the law is good. But I am not the one doing it. It is sin living in me that does it. And I know that nothing good lives in me, that is in my sinful nature. I want to do what is right, but I can't. I want to do what is good, but I don't. I don't want to do what is wrong, but I do it anyway. But if I do what I don't want to do, I'm not really the one doing it. It is sin living in me that does it. I've discovered this principle of life that when I want to do what is right, I inevitably do what is wrong. I love God's law with all my heart, but there is another power within me that is at war with my mind. This power makes me a slave to the sin that is still within me. Oh, what a miserable person that I am. Who will free me from this life that is dominated by sin and death? Thank God the answer is Jesus Christ our Lord. So you can see the struggle he's dealing with just with himself, just like us. It's even a struggle to read it, it's at least for me. But anyway, we can definitely see he was human. He had personal struggles and doubts about himself, just like us at times, which is why I think through a lot of his writing, he mentioned the same topic over and over again. In many of the books, he gives the same reminder to his readers, to us, and I think to himself too. And that reminder is basically to keep fighting the good fight, to press on, to don't give up in our Christian lives. In Philippians chapter 3, verses 13 and 14, he says, "Brethren, I do not count myself to apprehended, but one thing I do, forgetting those things which are behind and reaching forward to the things which are ahead. I press toward the goal for the prize of the upward call of God in Christ Jesus." And another one in Galatians 6:9, he says, "And let us not grow weary while doing good, for in due season we shall reap if we do not lose heart." Another one in Hebrews 2:1, he says, "We must pay the most careful attention, therefore, to what we have heard." And here's the important part. He says, "so that we do not drift away." And another one in Hebrews 12:1 and 2, he says, "Therefore we also, since we are surrounded by such a great cloud of witnesses, let us lay aside every weight and the sin which so easily ensnares us, and let us run with endurance the race that is set before us, looking unto Jesus, the author and finisher of our faith." And there's many more verses where he says basically the same kind of thing. Verse after verse, he's encouraging us to press on, to don't give up. In fact, I challenge you guys to, on your own time, read 2 Timothy. All through the book, he uses words like hold fast, be strong, endure, be diligent, be ready, be watchful. And through the book, he gives warnings too about the times to come, which is, I believe, the times we're living in now. So we need to be aware of this stuff. Anyway, with so many verses instructing us to not give up, to finish the race and press on, you have to ask yourself why. Why there's so many warnings? Why does he keep telling us this over and over again? Well, basically, it's because the danger is real, guys. It's something we need to be aware of, and a guard in our life constantly. Especially in today's society, there's so many distractions. We talk about this in my group all the time, how it's so easy to get your focus off of God and get distracted with work or family or you name it. The list is endless, but things are just trying to pull our focus off of God. Even tonight, there's probably some of you guys drifting off, squirrel, but anyway, it's something you need to be prepared for, guys. Otherwise, if you're not, you're going to fall for the dangers of it. And you can't become prideful about it either. You can't think it'll never happen to you. Don't ever think that you're never going to commit some certain sin or you're not going to fall away from the Lord. When you do, if you start thinking that way, that's pride taking over, and a fall is bound to happen. In fact, I know, or I'm sure most of you guys know someone in your life who started out strong as a Christian and only to drift away later in life. I know in my life, that's true. I know guys who were on fire for the Lord when I was a young Christian, who were out doing street witnessing, leading others to Christ, just on fire for Christ, and then only to be discouraged or disillusioned and, turning their backs on the Lord later. I know guys even here at Reliance, guys who have led, home groups and, on fire, and then later they're struggling in their walk. They're questioning it. What's it all about? Anyway, in preparing this message, I came across, I thought, a pretty good example of some pretty influential Christians they went through this. One in particular involved three men who all started out as just powerful and mighty tools for the Lord. This was back in the 1940s. The three men were Chuck Templeton, Braun Clifford, and Billy Graham. All three of these guys were in their mid-20s. They were packing auditoriums with people hungry to hear the gospel. One seminary president, after hearing Chuck Templeton preach one night to an audience of thousands, called him the most gifted and talented man in America today for preaching. And in 1946, the National Association of Evangelicals published an article on men who were the best used of God in that organization's history. The article highlighted the ministry of Chuck Templeton. And Billy Graham, unfortunately, wasn't even mentioned. Braun Clifford, the second guy I mentioned, he was another gifted 25-year-old evangelist. In 1945, many people believed Clifford to be the most powerful and gifted preacher the church had seen in centuries. That same year, Clifford preached in an auditorium of thousands of people in Miami, and people were lined up outside 10 and 12 deep, just wanting to hear the message, trying to get in. Later the same year, Clifford was preaching in the chapel at Baylor University, and the president of the university ordered all the bells to be turned off so Clifford could minister without interruption. And he preached for over 2 hours and 15 minutes. Just strong. So you guys have probably all heard of Billy Graham, but you probably haven't heard of Chuck Templeton or Braun Clifford. And that's because in 1950, Chuck Templeton left the ministry to pursue a career in radio and television. He decided he was no longer a believer in Jesus Christ. And Braun Clifford, in 1954, he lost his family, his ministry, his health, and then his life. Alcohol and financial irresponsibility had ruined him. At the age of 35, this once great preacher died from sclerosis of the liver in a rundown hotel in Amarillo. So guys, I truly believe that these are the kind of examples Paul had in mind when he repeatedly gives us this warning to keep the faith, to press on, not to give up. Even more disturbing to me was this recent poll I came across by the Barna Research Group. And if you're not familiar with them, they're basically an independent think tank or research firm who's been studying trends and investigating trends in the church for over 30 years. Anyway, they did this recent study regarding Christianity in America, in which they compared results over the past 30 years. And in the study, they divided people into three populations or three segments. The first one was practicing Christians, which is where I think we would fall into, which is basically people who identify as a Christian, who strongly believe faith is very important in their life and attend church regularly. The second group was non-practicing Christians, and these are basically people who self-identify or say they're Christians but don't really practice it. And the third group was non-Christians, and these are basically adults who don't identify as Christian at all. And that in that group falls atheists and agnostics. Anyway, the study found some really interesting trends. And keep in mind, the study was published in February of 2020, right before the whole COVID mess. Because I know when I read this, I was thinking, maybe COVID attributed to some of this stuff, because with, going to church online and watching from home, people are possibly falling away. But no, it was right before of the whole COVID thing, so that didn't apply. Anyway, Wellen, if you could put up graph 1. So in this graph, you can kind of see, this is showing Christianity in America over the last 20 years. And you can see those three population groups there. The red is practicing Christian. The light blue or whatever color that is non-practicing Christians. And then the yellow is non-Christians. So in the year 2000, 45% of Americans identified themselves as practicing Christians. And you see in 2020, it's now 25%. So the numbers of practicing Christians have nearly dropped in half over the last 20 years. During the same time, we see the number of non-practicing and non-Christians has increased. And then not on this graph, but the study also talked about the number of atheists and agnostics have grown from 11 to 21%, almost doubling over the last 20 years. And if you could, next slide. All right, this slide is showing weekly church attendance over the time period of 1993 to 2020, so about 30 years. And here we see basically 1/3 fewer Americans attend church weekly. It's dropped from 45% to 29%. And it is interesting too, when I first read that too, I was thinking, it's possibly or probably younger generations who are dropping off, but it's not. It's a trend across all ages. So next graph, Waylon. Okay, so this one is showing the church attendance by generation over the last 20 years. And it's broken into 4 groups. First one is elders, which are people born before 1946. Next one are baby boomers, born between 1946 and 1964. Third group is Generation X, which were born between 1965 and 1983. And then millennials, which were born between 1984 and 1998. So I'm pretty sure you guys fall into one of those groups. Anyway, interesting. You could see the drop. It's not just a generational thing. Elders had a drop of 14%, baby boomers 13%, Generation X 5%, and millennials 7%. And these numbers are pretty depressing, However, there was one thing that I thought was pretty encouraging in the study, and it falls along with what Paul, some of the warnings he gives us. If you want to pull up the next slide. So this one is showing Bible reading in America, and it's the top graph there shows basically the number of people who read their Bible regularly. The bottom is divided into different age segments, and then on the horizontal lines, and the vertical colors are people who read consistently on the left, and on the right, it's people who don't read very much. Anyway, the number of people who are reading their Bibles daily has stayed pretty much the same. It's pretty consistent. But what's pretty cool is the study shows that those people that are reading are staying committed also. In fact, the study it made some observations I thought were really good. One of them was, it says, when looking at the trend line among those who read the Bible weekly, the overall message is clear. Those committed to the spiritual practice of Bible reading have stayed committed. And also said, committed Christians are not the ones who are moving away from their faith communities. Instead, movement is occurring most among those who are only marginally attached to their faith to begin with. And I thought that's good news, goes along with what Paul's telling us. So basically, if we read the word regularly, odds are you're going to remain a strong, committed Christian. And again, the study went on to try to explain some of the the reasons why for the rapid decline in Christianity in America. And there's lots of different reasons, but regardless, it's happening. We see it. It's obvious. And there's a lot of other studies. You can Google it. You'll see there's tons of them out there. They all basically say the same thing. Christianity's, falling or dropping away. Some studies even call it the time we're living in the post-Christian America, which I thought was pretty disturbing. Another study I read pointed to the fact that the percentage of men leaving the church are higher than the percentage of women. And to me, that was one of the most troubling statistics I read. Guys, we're the men. We're the guys God is called to lead our families. We need to be the example and the role model for our wives and our children. We should be going to church and taking them with us. Unfortunately, in today's society, we see manhood is under attack also. Everything that makes masculinity sacred, like valor, honor, chivalry, leadership, it's all under siege. Masculinity is branded as toxic and is said to be responsible for many of the woes in America today. You guys have probably heard the term toxic masculinity being thrown around. It basically includes traits such as being mentally and physically tough, being dominant, being competitive, being stoic, or not displaying emotions, also being heterosexual, or being self-sufficient. All of these things are being cast into this same negative light. A Christian article I found online even made the following statement, and this was from a website called Everyday Christian Parent. It says, we see a new movement arising, and it's the emasculation of men, under the pretense of a social revolution against tyrannical patriarchy. That's a tough one to say. Anyway, consider the latest American Psychological Association, APA guidelines on traditional masculinity. They suggest a parent should not expose traditional masculinity among boys. Stoicism, competitiveness, dominance, and aggression are harmful, they say. Thus, the iconic images of Hercules or Rambo are deemed inappropriate for boys growing into men. To me, I read that and I thought, that's nuts. These are, I think, traits that we as men should strive for. There's traits I want my son and my grandsons to have. I want them to be leaders and self-sufficient, and be godly men. And to compound this, society for years now have been trying to feminize men. We see the gang of America evident in movies, TV, fashion. Laws are being placed to remove gender pronouns. We see that in California all the time now. Boys are in danger of growing up in an environment where women or transgenders not only dominate the media but dictates how boys should be boys. And again, in movies, TV, social networks, we see the traditional man is typically portrayed as either being clueless or an idiot, or on the other extreme as being violent, gay, or not violent, not gay, violent, angry, or driven by sex. I'm losing my voice. As a result of this, boys today are growing up confused and unclear how they should be. And grown men, too, are unclear on how they should be and what roles they should take. What role do we take in the home, in the family, in the workplace? Do we open the door for a woman, to honor them? If we do, we might offend some of them. It's crazy. We don't know what to do. But the Bible's pretty clear, on the roles we should take. Anyway, to make things worse, things aren't going to get any better. I truly believe we're living in the end times. Paul in 2 Timothy chapter 3, verses 1 through 5, when referring to end times, he says, "But know this, in the last days perilous times will come. For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness but denying its power. And from such people turn away." So I don't know about you guys, but what time period does that sound like to you? To me, it's today. We're living in these times. So guys, remember, in our own tendencies to get distracted from God and take our focus off Him, and that and the attacks we're seeing on manhood today, and knowing we're living in the end times, what do we do? How do we combat this? Well, I'm glad you asked. In the warnings that Paul gives us over and over again, he also gives us the answers. We need to be prepared. We need to get ready for war, guys. Christianity is not a playground. It's a battleground. Let me repeat that again so you guys get it. Christianity is not a playground. It's a battleground. The Bible is explicitly clear that we have an enemy that's out to destroy us and take everything that we hold dear. If we're not prepared for his attacks, guys, the result's going to be a massacre. We see this the last few weeks. Pastor Ted's been going through the armor of God in Ephesians chapter 6, teaching us all about these weapons we have at our disposal to fight the good fight. Just a couple of weeks ago, he made a comment. I thought that was really good. I jotted it down. He said, "The war is won, but there's a daily battle to fight." That's so true, guys. That's a daily battle we have to fight every day. And just yesterday, he said, "There is a war between heaven and hell, and you are the target of that war." Think about that. We're under attack. So what do we do? Well, the first thing we need to do is we need to get in the battle. You can't fight if you're not in it. Some guys get discouraged saying Christian life is just too hard. They don't want to even fight. They're giving up before they start. Which this kind of reminded me of a quote from one of my favorite movies, which is Chariots of Fire. I don't know if you guys have ever seen it. It's from back in the 80s, I think. Anyway, it was a true story based on two British athletes in the 1924 Olympics, I think it was. One of them was Erich Klan, who is a devout Christian, just running for the glory of God. and the other was Harold Abrams, a Jewish gentleman. Anyway, in the movie, there's this scene where Abrams, who typically won every race he won or entered, he loses to Erich Klan. And in the scene, he says, "If I can't win, I won't run." And in reply, his girlfriend was sitting there. She tells him, "If you don't run, you can't win." Which is so true, guys. It's the same thing in our Christian life. If we want to finish the race, we've got to get in the race first. We got to fight. And we need to prepare. In every part of our life, we make preparations. If you're working on a project, you make a spreadsheet or a list, a sketch or drawing or bill of materials, whatever. We prepare for it. Or if you're going on a vacation, you make plans, you buy tickets, you plan your routes, you prepare. Even shopping, you want some new tool or new gadget. We do research on it. We read reviews, we check prices. We're preparing. In every part of our life, we make preparations. And we have to do it in our spiritual life too. We have to be prepared, ready to fight. But it's not enough to just plan. We have to also put it in action. Plans without practice will fly out the window when things go sideways. The great theologian Mike Tyson once said, "Everyone has a plan until he gets hit in the mouth." That's so true. Look at the military. They don't just buy cool toys and sit on them. No, they train with them over and over and over again. They go through different scenarios and drills, just getting ready for combat. They make it muscle memory, basically. So when, something happens, it's just going to be second nature to them. They're going to know how to respond. Or look at a sports team. They don't just sit around in their uniforms looking cute. They practice every day. They go out to the field and they practice over and over again. They're preparing for that big game, that fight. For me, for the last 25 years or so, my career has been basically working with weapons and ammo. And as a result, I get people coming to me all the time asking me for advice on, what type of firearm they should get for home defense or, this or that. And, especially this last year, it's been people coming out of the woodworks asking me, with the way the country's going. But anyway, I always tell them basically the same thing, and it's whichever firearm they decide to get, you have to practice with it. You have to know how to use it. Just having it or having it sit in your shelf isn't going to do a bit of good when the poop hits the fan, guys. You got to know how to use it. It's got to be muscle memory. When things go bad, your brain's just going to go to mush. And again, it's pretty much the same thing in our spiritual life. Just having a Bible and sitting on your bookshelf or, is it going to make a difference if we never use it, never read it? We need to be prepared and take action today. Don't wait. We can't expect to sit on our hands or sit on our Bibles thinking we'll start reading when the times go bad. By then, it's going to be too late. And we need to continue on in that, Lord. Or guys, not Lord. In my personal life, I like to go running to kind of sort of somewhat stay in shape. Round is a shape. So actually, I should rephrase that. I like to eat. So because I like to eat, I go running. I'm not like some of those guys who get this runner's high and they feel all, I don't know, weird, when they run. That's not me. Those guys have a screw loose. For me, running is more like hitting your thumb with the hammer. It feels great when you stop. So anyway, seriously, running or any athletic sport, it's a lot like our spiritual walk. We have to make the decision to do it and to stick with it, to be committed to it. And I think that's why Paul, in numerous verses, he uses sports analogies to get this point across, especially to us men, because we like sports, We need to be committed and stick to it. For me, there's many times when I go running, I want to quit. I want to give up. But personally, what I like to do, I make a mark, out ahead, and I focus on that mark and I press on toward it, and once I reach it, I pick a new mark. Just keep going, Again, it's the same thing in our spiritual life. We need to keep our eyes focused on that finish line. You don't quit. It's so easy to quit. And like I said, a lot of guys don't even want to start. Sometimes I hear guys saying they want this like this roadmap of how they should proceed in life. God doesn't give us a roadmap. It's more like he gives us a compass. The compass is pointing toward him. That's what we got to follow. Don't worry about the ins and outs of daily life. Just keep pressing on towards him. Anyway, Paul also told us not to grow weary, not to get tired. We can't put our spiritual walk on cruise control. Don't make this mistake thinking you're good or you've arrived in your Christian life. That's not gonna happen, guys. You need to continually seek him every day. He says we're told to pray continually, all day. Just keep praying, seeking him. There's no standing still in our Christian life. To me, it's kind of like going uphill on a downhill escalator. I don't know if you guys ever tried that. Go to the mall, try that. You got to keep moving. You got to keep going ahead. If you stop, you're going to be going down. There's no standing still. Again, as Paul clearly tells us, press on. Keep going towards that goal. And we also need to be on guard. The enemy's there to attack us. We need to have that shield of faith like Pastor Ted was talking about yesterday. Because the attacks are going to come. They're without a doubt. If you haven't experienced them yet, they're coming. You got to be ready. 1 Peter 5:8 says, "Stay alert. Watch out for your enemy, the devil. He prowls around like a roaring lion looking for someone to devour." And that someone is you guys. The devil would like nothing more than to tear you to shreds. Especially if you are pressing forward in your life and your walk is good, you expect the fight. He's going to try to pull back ground, And actually, that's a good sign. If he is attacking, that means you're doing pretty well. If you're not being attacked, maybe he's good with you. He's happy with where you're at. Something to think about. Anyway, since the enemy wants to bring us down, we need to constantly be on guard. Being on guard means basically to be watchful or be aware. What circumstances are you finding yourself in, or positions you're in? Just you got to be careful. Guys, it's so easy to get snared in sin. Here at Reliance, I'm on one of the safety team members, and as part of that, we try to be watchful. We try to be aware of situations going on around us, what's happening. Our heads are kind of on a swivel. Lots of times you'll see us just looking around, seeing what's happening, and we're looking for danger. Something that might endanger the flock. Maybe a person looking threatening, or something's out of place, or maybe it's just someone that needs help. We're watchful, so hopefully we can try to prevent things from going sideways. And we also want to protect the biggest target. If you see Pastor Ted between services, you usually see one of us pretty close. We're there to protect him if something goes wrong or if he needs help. With our lives, it's the same thing. We need to be on watch for the dangers around us. Too often, though, we forget to look at the spiritual dangers. Those dangers are real. And I think probably more dangerous than the physical dangers. We need to prevent stuff. We need to resist evil and protect our hearts and our minds from the attacks of Satan at all times. A great way I found to continue to press on, continue the fight, is through fellowship and the encouragement of brothers. You guys got to remember, Satan's been around for a long time, a few thousand years. He's smart and he knows our weaknesses. He knows how to push our buttons and what's going to, tweak us. And he's sneaky. His attacks can be subtle at times without us even seeing him. And sometimes it takes a Christian brother to point those things out, things that we might not even see in our own life. And plus, for me, fellowship is always encouraging and motivating in my Christian walk. It's just like coming here on Monday nights. There's lots of times I don't feel like coming. Even tonight I didn't feel like coming, but Nick made me. I can come. I can think of 100 reasons why I don't want to come. I got this going or that going. But they're excuses. But I made a commitment to do it, and I do it. And every time I do, I get blessed. I leave every Monday night. I'm like on a spiritual high. It's awesome. It's a great tool for motivating me in my Christian walk, and I'm willing to bet it is for you guys too. Or even like now we're going to be breaking for a while. you could still meet with, one-on-one with guys, or a small group, a discipleship thing. Anyway, as I mentioned before, I like to go running to kind of maintain this physique here. But anyway, there was a time not too long ago I was running with a pretty good friend of mine. He's one of those wacko guys that really gets into running, weirdo. And he's done some marathons, and he's good at it. He's a really good runner. Anyway, we were on this run out in the country, and the finish point, or our destination, was up at this top of this hill. And at this point, I was spent. I was worn out. I just wanted to stop and lay down and cry. I was good with that. But my friend, he could have been there way at the finish line. He could have been relaxing already, but no, he chose to hang back with me. And he just kept running alongside me, encouraging me on. And it reminded me again of how important our fellowship is with each other. We need each other for encouragement. There's no Lone Ranger Christians out there. We need each other. Anyway, with my friend, we finally approached the top of this hill, the finish line, and he tells me, keep going, press on, finish strong. And I'm sprinting, and it gave me the energy to go on. And that's exactly with us again, like in our spiritual life, what we need. Press on, guys. Keep seeking the Lord no matter what life brings your way. And a great byproduct, I thought, of following Paul's instructions and keeping up, keeping the faith, is our families are going to see it. They're going to see the Christian man that you are. You're going to be an awesome role model and example for them. I remember earlier the studies and the attacks we're seeing on manhood today. I mentioned about the attacks on boys and girls too. It's all around us today. But, they have plenty of bad examples out there. They need godly ones like you in their lives. So continue, guys, press on. And thankfully, as we continue to seek the Lord and keep pressing on, we will be those role models in their lives. The lives our family and the world needs to see. They need more Christian men out there. And God can and He will use us, guys. We're flawed beings. He knows we're going to make mistakes. We're going to blow it at times, but He's going to use us, just like He did Paul and the other apostles. They were regular guys, just like you and me. They had their faults. They made mistakes, but they kept pressing on, and God used them. They kept seeking the Lord and used them. And He's going to do the same thing for us. So through the last 11 weeks, we got to know a little bit about all the apostles, the original 12, and also about Paul. And I know for me, and I hope for the same thing for you guys, that this whole series has been a great one. I've learned a lot, learning about these men. We've learned about how they were ordinary men, but God used them in extraordinary ways. When we look back at the apostles, we might be tempted to look at this group of men with all their weaknesses and flaws and wonder why did Jesus pick them? Why did He pick somebody else better qualified, better suited for the job? But simply put, His strength is made perfect in weakness. He chooses the weak things of this world to confound the mighty. That's why He chooses us, guys. And anyway, in his book, 12 Ordinary Men, Pastor John MacArthur wrote the following statement, which I thought sums up the apostles pretty well. He writes, "The apostles were like the rest of us. They were selected from unworthy and unqualified. They were like Elijah, with a nature like ours. They did not rise to the highest usefulness because they were somehow different from us. Their transformation into vessels of honor was solely the work of the potter. Many Christians become disillusioned and disheartened when their spiritual life and witness suffer because of sin or failure." Yeah, I'm losing my voice. "We tend to think we're worthless nobodies, and left to ourselves, that would be true. But worthless nobodies are just the kind of people God uses, because that is all He has to work with." That's us, guys. Worthless nobodies, but He's ready to use us. And I thought, this quote from John MacArthur, I thought, what a great way to sum up these men who we've been studying for the last 12 weeks. It's so encouraging to me to see how if God can use men like them, he can surely use us. I like to look at them and just be amazed at how God used these ordinary guys, how he turned the world upside down with them. The legacy they left behind is just mind-blowing to me. And it makes me think about my own life. What type of legacy am I going to leave behind when I'm gone? It might seem kind of morbid, but I don't know, did you guys ever think about that in your own life? What kind of, how's it going to end? How's your family, your loved ones, your friends, your neighbor, even the mailman, how are they going to remember you? Is your life going to make a difference? Hopefully it does. Hopefully you press on and it will. I think about this every once in a while. None of us are getting any younger. Something we need to think about more often. I know I'm older now than ever. I bet. Pretty profound, huh? But you got to think about that. Is your life going to make a difference? Personally, I hope and pray that I'm thought of as a good man, a kind man, a loving man, but most importantly, a man who loved God. I pray that my life for him will be evident in the way I lived my life. Guys, we all want to finish well, to be remembered as men of God, men who could say, like Paul did, I have fought the good fight, I have finished the race, I have kept the faith. Amen. So anyway, we're going to break into groups, but before we do, I have a few questions for you guys to discuss. And I want to encourage you guys, this being the last night too, be real with your answers. None of the superficial stuff, be honest. If you guys are struggling with something, share it. We're here, like I said, we're here for each other to encourage each other. Anyway, the questions are, what measures are you taking in your life to ensure you will finish well? And second one, of all the apostles we've studied, which one can you personally relate to and why? And the third one is, if the Lord took you home tonight, how do you honestly think people will remember you?